She pulled the letter out of her desk like it was a piece of treasure. Cream-colored paper, clean handwriting, a scent of something faint and nostalgic, like old books and cherry blossoms. Another letter. Another page of words that made her feel like someone finally saw her. Jung Da-hyun's fingers trembled slightly as she unfolded the page, heart pounding with the same excitement she had felt every morning for the last 2 weeks. You walk through the hallway like music the rest of CE. Thus can't hear. You shine, but not in a loud way. You shine like warmth, like a memory, like something too soft to hold. She smiled, blinked hard, because no one had ever written anything like that to her, not without wanting something in return. And yet, she still didn't know who it was. The letters had started showing up without warning, tucked carefully into the side pocket of her desk, always folded, always unsigned. But they weren't random compliments, they were intimate, like whoever wrote them knew her in a way no one else had ever tried to. She looked up across the classroom. Students milled around, laughed, gossiped, played games on their phones. And in the very back, head down, hoodie up, headphones in, Kim Tae-woo sat in silence. If only she knew. A few weeks earlier, Tae-woo had written the first letter with shaking hands. He didn't plan to do it, it just happened. He had been watching Da-hyun from a distance for years. Not in a creepy way, not like the guys who stared at her in gym class or whispered behind her back. He just admired her, the way she helped teachers clean up after class, the way she didn't laugh when others did, the way she looked sad sometimes, even when she smiled. And so on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, while the others played soccer during PE, Tae-woo sat on the bleachers and wrote, "You probably think no one sees you beyond the spotlight. But I do. I see the way you press your lips together when you're nervous. I see how your hands always shake when you read aloud. You're not perfect. You're real. And that's why I can't stop writing to you." He didn't sign it, didn't expect a response. He just slipped it into her desk before anyone could notice and walked away. But something changed the next day. She smiled, really smiled, and Tae-woo felt it like a spark in his chest. So he wrote again and again. Every letter made her lean in closer. And with each passing day, Jung Da-hyun found herself wondering about the boy behind the words. She hadn't told anyone about the first few. Not even her best friend, Rina. But after the 5th one, she couldn't hold it in anymore. "Rina," she whispered during lunch, eyes wide. "I think I'm falling for someone." Rina nearly choked on her soda. "Wait, what?" Da-hyun glanced around, then pulled the latest letter from her backpack and slid it across the table. Rina read in silence, then blinked. "Whoa. I know, right?" Rina's eyes narrowed. "Do you know who it is?" Da-hyun shook her head. "No clue, but I don't know. I feel like he knows me, like really knows me." For a second, Rina didn't respond. Then, she smiled wide, bright, too bright. "Well," she said, sliding the letter back, "maybe it's that cute guy from class 2, what's his name? Sunho?" Da-hyun laughed. "Sunho, please, he can barely spell his own name." Rina shrugged. "Just saying, could be someone from another school. You are pretty popular." But as she spoke, something flickered behind her eyes, something sharp. What Da-hyun didn't know was that Rina had seen the very first letter. Accidentally, she had gone back into class to grab her phone and spotted the folded page in Da-hyun's open desk. She hadn't read it at first, but curiosity, jealousy, something darker pulled her in. She read it, all of it, and instead of telling Da-hyun, she had put it back exactly as she found it, and waited. Because for Rina, Da-hyun had always been the star, the pretty one, the admired one, the girl everyone wanted to sit with, text with, take selfies with, and Rina? She was the accessory, always second, always almost. But this letter, these words, they weren't like the ones Da-hyun got from the boys who flirted just to brag later. These were different, gentle, emotional, obsessively honest. And for a second, Rina wished she had been the one who received them. So when Da-hyun confessed, she was falling, Rina made a decision. She smiled and lied. "It's probably a guy from the all-boys school down the road," she said. "I heard someone there likes writing." Da-hyun lit up. Really? Rina nodded, making it up as she went. Yeah, maybe he saw you at the winter festival or something. Da-hyun clutched the letter to her chest. That's kind of amazing. Rina leaned forward, voice soft. If you want, I can try to find out who it is. Da-hyun hesitated, then nodded. Would you? Of course, Rina said. And in that moment, she crossed a line she had no intention of ever stepping back from. The next day, there was a new letter, similar style, similar words, but not quite the same. Tae-woo had been late to school. Someone else had slipped something into Da-hyun's desk first. Rina. The forgery was flawless, at least to someone who didn't know what to look for. Da-hyun didn't question it. Why would she? It was still her secret world, still beautiful, still hers. She read it during homeroom, face flushed, and when she looked up, she smiled in the direction of the door, exactly where Tae-woo stood. Late again, breathless, books clutched to his chest. For a second, he thought just maybe she was smiling at him. And so it began, a silent war of ink and paper. Tae-woo wrote from his heart, Rina wrote to win, and Da-hyun. She fell deeper into a love she didn't know was being rewritten with every word. By the third week, Da-hyun was in love, not with a face, not with a name, with words. Every morning a new letter, each one more personal, more vulnerable, more hers. They didn't just compliment her, they understood her. When she was tired, the letter said, you don't need to smile every time someone looks at you, you're allowed to rest. When she was upset, the letter read, even when the sun hides, the sky is still the sky. That's you, constant, real. No boy had ever said anything close to that. Not the guys who flirted with her in gym class. Not the ones who slid into her DMs with half-baked compliments and emoji flames. This wasn't that. This was soul level, and she couldn't take it anymore. I need to meet him, she told Rina one afternoon, her eyes glowing. Whoever's writing these, I have to see him. Rina smiled tightly. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything, Da-hyun whispered. It's like he knows the real me, the one no one else sees. Rina tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and nodded slowly. I'll arrange it, she said. That night, Rina didn't sleep. She stared at the last letter Da-hyun had received, one she forged in her room after copying Tae-woo's tone from memory. Her desk was littered with crumpled drafts. She had started mimicking his phrasing, his rhythm, and it was working. Da-hyun hadn't noticed. But still, Rina knew. The letters were starting to sound different, more shallow, less sincere. She wasn't him. She didn't write from love. She wrote from competition. And the closer Da-hyun got to the fantasy, the more panicked Rina became. Because if Da-hyun ever found out who was really behind the original letters, she would choose him. Again, like always. So Rina made a decision. She'd fake the meeting, just like she'd faked the letters. Meanwhile, Tae-woo sat in the library with his latest letter in his hands, heart beating so loudly he was sure someone would hear it. He was writing about the way she tied her hair with one hand, how she always gave her extra lunch snacks to the quiet girl in class. He was writing about her heart. But something inside him hesitated, not because he didn't mean it, but because the more he wrote, the more it hurt, because this love was one-sided. He knew that. He always had. And still, he couldn't stop. Da-hyun couldn't stop either. She reread the letters at night, hid them under her pillow, highlighted her favorite lines, and the idea of meeting the author made her heart race. She imagined him taller than her, with soft hands and nervous eyes. Maybe a little shy, maybe someone who loved books, music, someone who saw past the crowd, someone real. The next day, Rina handed her a note. It wasn't in the same handwriting, but Da-hyun didn't notice. I want to meet you. Friday, 4:30 p.m. on the rooftop. Da-hyun nearly dropped the paper. Is this real? She asked, breathless. Rina nodded. He's just nervous, but he wants to see you. Da-hyun clutched the note like it was the first page of a new life. She couldn't believe it after all. This time, the mystery would finally end. Tae-woo didn't know any of this. He just kept writing, kept hoping, even though part of him already feared what he couldn't explain. Because Da-hyun had stopped smiling in his direction, she stopped glancing. Back when he walked in late, she didn't touch the letters the same way. It was like her heart had shifted, and he didn't know why. Friday came. Da-hyun climbed the rooftop stairs with her heart in her throat. Her hands were sweating, her knees were weak. She looked down at her outfit for the third time, smoothing invisible wrinkles, and then she stepped out empty. The rooftop was empty. No one waiting, no boy. No letter, no explanation, just wind and silence. She waited 30 minutes, then 40. She didn't cry. Not at first, but something cracked when she reread the note and saw how impersonal it looked, how rushed, how unfamiliar. She sat down, hugging, her knees to her chest, and felt the first tear slide down her cheek. It didn't make sense. Why would someone write her all those things? Only to vanish. Rina found her later and pretended to be shocked. "I don't know what happened," she lied. "Maybe he got scared." Da-hyun wiped her eyes. "I don't understand. Everything felt so real." "Maybe he was never real to begin with," Rina said gently. Da-hyun looked down. "I feel stupid." "You're not." But in Rina's chest, guilt twisted. Just a little. But she pushed it down, because the game wasn't over. Not yet. Later. That night, Da-hyun was in her room, staring at the old letters. The first ones, the ones that felt different, deeper. She started comparing them, line by line, and something strange happened. She noticed the tone shift, not just the words. The feeling. The early letters had layers, honesty, pain. The newer ones felt like copies, still beautiful, but hollow. She didn't know what it meant, but it felt important. Tae-woo, meanwhile, finally worked up the courage to slip a different kind of note into her desk. Not a love letter, a truth. "I don't know if you read these anymore, but I need you to know, I never wanted to stay invisible. I just didn't know how to be anything else." He didn't sign it, but he knew she'd feel it, or hoped she would. The next day, Da-hyun opened her desk, read the new note, and froze. Because this one felt like the first again. The rooftop stayed empty for days, even though Da-hyun still walked past the stairs, eyes drifting upward, hoping. She couldn't forget that feeling, standing there, waiting for someone who promised to show up. And didn't. The letters kept coming, but now they felt different. She still smiled when she read them, still underlined certain phrases, still reread her favorite lines at night. But something inside her had shifted. The voice that had once felt like magic now felt slightly off, too perfect, too clean, like someone was trying to sound like someone else, and she didn't know how to explain it, even to herself. Rina noticed the change. She tried harder, wrote more carefully, borrowed Tae-woo's tone, rereading. The old letters Da-hyun had saved to mimic the structure. But emotion is not something you can copy, and Da-hyun began to sense it. "You think I'm crazy?" she asked Rina one afternoon. "I feel like these letters aren't from the same person." Rina's hand tightened on her water bottle. "You're overthinking," she said quickly. "He probably just ran out of poetic things to say. Happens to everyone." Da-hyun didn't answer. Instead, she stared at the letter in her hands. One line stood out, something that bothered her. "I dream of you the way someone dreams of a future they'll never have." It sounded beautiful, but flat, like a quote from a movie. The early letters never sounded like that. They were awkward, raw, but real. This felt written for effect. She didn't know why it mattered so much, but it did. At the same time, Tae-woo was unraveling. He had noticed it weeks ago, that the letters she reacted to weren't always the ones he wrote. She'd smile at her desk before he even had the chance to deliver anything. And sometimes, he'd find letters already in her desk, letters he didn't write. At first, he thought he was going insane, but then he started checking, watching. And one morning, from the library across the hallway, he saw it. Rina, slipping something into Da-hyun's desk, smiling, laughing with someone as if she hadn't just broken 1,000 rules. That's when everything clicked. The missing pieces, the fading voice, the disconnect between what he felt and what she thought she was reading. She wasn't falling for him anymore. She was falling for someone else, someone fake, and his heart shattered without making a sound. He sat alone in the music room that afternoon, surrounded by silence and echoes. In his hand, the last letter he had written. He didn't want to write anymore, didn't want to compete with a lie, but how could he let her believe that the most beautiful things she had read were being written by someone who didn't even mean them? He had to do something. The next day he walked up to her, first time ever, in front of everyone. His hands were shaking, his throat dry, his face pale, but he stood in front of Jung Da-hyun while her classmates paused mid-conversation and said, "Can I talk to you for a second?" She blinked, surprised. "Me?" He nodded. They walked into the hallway, awkward silence between them. Then he said it, fast, all at once. "I've been writing letters to you since last month, but someone's been stealing them, changing them. I think it's your friend, Urina." She stared at him like he had just spoken a different language. "What?" "I don't know how it started, but I saw her putting something in your desk. I know it sounds crazy, but the first ones, those were mine." Da-hyun laughed, just once, confused. "You think you wrote those?" He hesitated. "I know I did." She took a step back. "You're just jealous. You think you're the only one. Who knows how to say nice things?" "No," he said. "I think I'm the one who meant them." Her eyes darkened. "Don't do this. I'm not doing anything. She's my best friend. You're just some guy who never talks to anyone. You don't even look at people. I looked at you. Every day, for years." Her face froze. And for a second there was something sharp and soft and uncertain in her eyes. Then she shook her head. "This is insane," and she walked away, leaving Tae-woo standing there with every word still tangled in his throat. Rina was waiting for her in the bathroom. "How'd it go?" she asked, feigning innocence. "He said you've been stealing his letters." Rina widened her eyes perfectly. "What? That's insane." "I told him the same thing," Da-hyun said, but her voice didn't sound sure anymore. Rina shrugged. "Jealous guys do weird things." Da-hyun nodded slowly, but in the mirror her reflection looked unsure. That night Tae-woo didn't sleep. He gathered every letter he had written, all of them folded, unfolded, crumpled, smoothed again. Dozens. He went to the school early, before anyone else, and in front of the main gate where students filtered in every morning, headphones in, phones out. He stood silent, and one by one, he ripped the letters in half, then dropped them, let the pages scatter in the wind like confetti from a story no one would read. People stopped, watched, whispered, but he didn't care. Because maybe this was all he had left. A quiet protest against being erased. By the time Da-hyun arrived, the courtyard was covered in torn pages, lines she remembered, words she had once loved, floating in pieces around her feet. And in the center, Tae-woo, head down, shoulders hunched, walking away. By the end of the week, Tae-woo had stopped showing up to school. His seat by the window stayed empty. His headphones, usually tangled around his neck, were gone. His notebook, always open, always scribbled full of quiet confessions, remained. Untouched in his locker, no one asked where he was, except her. Da-hyun tried not to show it, but the silence he left behind was loud. She pretended to laugh at jokes. She nodded when Rina spoke, but inside, something itched, an ache she couldn't name. She replayed his words over and over in her head. "I think I'm the one who meant them." She didn't want to believe it. Couldn't, because if it was true, that meant she had fallen in love with the wrong person and trusted the wrong friend. "Where is he?" she asked Rina the following Monday. "Who?" Da-hyun stared. "Tae-woo," Rina shrugged. "How should I know? You've been quiet." "Maybe I'm just tired of talking about letters and drama," Rina snapped. That stopped Da-hyun. She nodded once, slowly, but the doubt was already growing roots. That evening, Da-hyun pulled out the folder she had hidden under her bed. The letters. Every single one. She arranged them chronologically on the floor, oldest to newest, and then she read them. All of them. Not like a girl in love, like a detective, line by line. She studied the strokes of the handwriting, the way certain words curved, the way others were rushed. shaky, almost shy. The early letters had smudges, as if the pen had trembled, as if the writer had paused, worried, unsure. But starting with letter number 9, the rhythm changed, the writing was neater, too confident. And the voice? It lost something. Emotion, vulnerability. The first letters had made her feel seen. The newer ones made her feel adored, but in a way that didn't feel earned. And suddenly, she knew. The next day, Da-hyun walked into school early. She went straight to the storage room near the old art wing. No one used it anymore, except Tae-woo. Sometimes she'd seen him there after lunch, sitting with his headphones on, sketching in silence. It was empty now, dusty shelves, old desks, a stack of forgotten yearbooks, and on the floor, half buried beneath a pile of scrap paper, she found it, a black notebook. Worn edges. She opened it. Her. Breath caught. Inside were poems, paragraphs, sketches of a girl with long hair and quiet eyes. Her. There was one entry written in pencil, barely visible. I want to tell her the truth, but I'm afraid it'll hurt more than the lie. She closed the notebook slowly, hands shaking, and walked out of the room without saying a word. She found Rina that afternoon by the vending machines. Da-hyun didn't hesitate, held up the notebook. Let it speak for itself, I found this. Rina blinked. What is it? You know what it is. A pause, then a laugh. Shallow, nervous. You're not actually believing that stalker, are you? Da-hyun's eyes narrowed. Don't. Rina raised her hands. Okay, fine. He gave you the first few letters. So what? I made them better. Prettier. You liked them more after I started helping. You didn't help, Da-hyun said, voice low. You manipulated. Rina stepped closer. You don't get it, she hissed. It's always been you. Everyone chooses you, even people like him. I just wanted for once to be chosen first. Da-hyun stared and finally saw her, not the friend with perfect hair and a dazzling smile, but the girl who had been hiding behind her shadow for too long and now wanted to destroy anything that reminded her of it. Da-hyun stepped back. I trusted. You, she said. You shouldn't have, Rina muttered, and walked away. That night, Da-hyun didn't sleep. She sat in bed, the notebook on her lap, and reread the last entry over and over. Then she flipped to the front page and wrote a single line. You didn't hurt me. You saved me, she asked around the next morning. Found out Tae-woo had been spending his days in the computer lab, helping a junior with her science fair project. She went there, knocked twice on the glass. He turned, saw her, and froze. She stepped. In slowly, he looked pale, tired, smaller somehow. Hi, she said. He took off his headphones. You found it, she nodded. He looked away. I didn't mean for you to. I know. He swallowed hard. I didn't want to be a name, just a voice. I didn't fall in love with a name, she said. I fell in love with the words. He looked at her again, really looked, and saw the same girl he had written to, the one who laughed with her whole heart, who made him feel like he wasn't invisible. And then she took the notebook from her bag, opened it, showed him her handwriting. You didn't hurt me. You saved me. He read it once, twice. His eyes filled with something he hadn't let anyone see before. Hope. It had never been about the letters, not really. Da-hyun realized that the moment she saw Tae-woo's eyes behind those glasses, too wide, too startled, and far too familiar. She had read his heart for weeks, without ever seeing his face. And now, standing in the quiet computer lab as fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, she finally saw both, the words, and the boy behind them. Tae-woo couldn't speak at first. His throat closed up when she handed him the notebook, her message scrawled in soft, slanted handwriting. You didn't hurt me. You saved me. He read it again, then looked at her. Why? Why are you here? She gave a small, nervous smile. Because I never got to say thank you. For everything. He lowered his gaze, voice barely a whisper. You're not supposed to thank me. I lied. You didn't lie, she said gently. You hid. There's a difference. His jaw tensed. I should have told you sooner. I was just scared. I was scared too, she admitted. But your letters made me brave." That's when he finally met her eyes again, and in that look, the months of silence, the shame, the confusion, the hope, it all collided. They sat, side by side in the back row of the empty lab, knees close but not touching. Outside, the bell rang. Students passed by. Inside, it was just them. "You didn't have to meet me," he said after a while. "Not after what happened, after what she did." "I know." "So why did you?" She took a deep breath. "Because I fell in love with the way you wrote about me." Silence. Then, "I fell in love with who I was through your eyes, and when I saw you, I realized maybe I could love the boy holding the pen too." Tae-woo's eyes softened. "You don't have to say that." She shook her head. "But I want to." He opened his mouth to reply, then closed it, then opened it again. "Can I show you something?" She nodded. He reached into his backpack and pulled out a folder. Inside, all the originals, the real letters, the ones before they were copied, forged, twisted. He handed her the first one. It was old, slightly wrinkled, the ink smudged at the corners. She read it slowly. It was the one that started it all. "You walk through the hallway like music the rest of us can't hear." Her breath caught. "I never stopped writing," he whispered. "Even when she took them. Even when you started looking through me again, I kept writing." "Why?" "Because I didn't know how to stop loving you." She blinked hard, tears threatening her lashes. "I don't want you to stop." They walked out of the lab side by side. No hiding this time. The hallway was quiet. Students turned, looked, whispered. But neither of them cared. When they reached the stairwell, he stopped, turned to her. "There's something I need to do." She tilted her head. "What?" "Something I should have done a long time ago." And then slowly, carefully, he reached into his hoodie pocket, pulled out a fresh letter, unfolded it, and began to read aloud. His voice shook at first, but then it grew stronger. "Dear Da-hyun, I never thought you'd hear this. Never thought my words would matter to anyone, especially not you. But every time I watched you smile, I believed maybe someone like me could belong in your world. You're not perfect, and that's why I love you, because you're kind even when no one's looking. Because you believe in people, even when they don't believe in themselves. Because you looked at a boy like me and saw more than silence. If you never feel the same, that's okay, but if you do, I'll be here, writing, always writing, for you." The hallway was dead quiet. Then she stepped forward, took his hand, and said with no hesitation, "I do." He blinked. "You do?" She laughed through her tears. "I do feel the same." And then, in front of everyone, no hiding, no notes, no aliases, she kissed him, soft, brief, true. Whispers exploded down the hallway, but all Tae-woo could hear was her heartbeat under his hand. All he could feel was her hand in his, and all he could see was the beginning of something he never thought he'd have. Later that day, they sat under the cherry tree behind the gym. No letters, no words, just silence, the kind that didn't need to be filled. Then she asked, "Will you still write to me?" He smiled, always. On the last page of his notebook, he wrote, "She didn't fall in love with my face. She fell in love with my voice, and I'll spend every day learning how to use it for her."